Hello, hello, hello. How are we doing today? My name is SpectrumDominus, and welcome to my 2017 Extreme Rules prediction show. We are filming live today on my Twitch account. You can come and join us for all of these prediction shows. Check the description down below for my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/SpectrumDominus. I'm doing my show a little earlier than I normally do. As most of you know, I film it Friday night and try to get it up Friday night or Saturday morning. However, I'm going on a trip this weekend, so doing it Thursday morning. Gonna upload it right after that. So there's a couple extra days for you to check out my predictions. Also, a couple extra days for me to think about it and change my mind. So if I change my mind, I'll drop some thoughts in the comments section during the weekend before the show starts. But let's get started. As always, I am using the Wikipedia page. I just type in Extreme Rules and go to the Wikipedia page. What that does is, if you haven't been here before for my prediction show, it gives you a list of all the matches. However, I have never had a match show up on Wikipedia that didn't show up on the pay-per-view. I have, however, saw matches on Wikipedia that I did not know about, usually pre-show matches that was not announced, but however they were on the pay-per-view. So I always use Wikipedia until the day that there's something on there that isn't on the show. I will continue to use Wikipedia. It's just a good enough reference. That being said, this time there isn't a match, pre-show match listed. I don't know if it's too early. I usually wait till longer, as I've said. So maybe there's a pre-show match that just hasn't been announced. Something like Goldust versus R-Truth would be a nice one. I can't really think of any others that could happen, but they could always just throw in their flavor of the week versus Kurt Hawkins. That could happen too. So anyway, the first match listed here is Rich Swann and Sasha Banks versus Noam Dar and Alicia Fox. This is actually harder than it seems. It seems pretty obvious. Sasha Banks is former women's champion, multiple-time women's champion last year. She should be in the running for stuff to go on. That makes perfect sense, that they should have her win. But seeing as the storyline is kind of it's a cruiserweight-based storyline, it's set in the 205 universe, it almost makes no sense to have the 205 people lose to the main roster lady, and then let her go back to her main roster, and then have that team of Fox and Dar be in shambles with losses, and then continue their 205 storyline, not associated with Sasha. It's very weird that they're bridging the gap between the two. I understand why they do it. There are no women on 205 Live, except for Alicia, who's also theoretically on the main roster. But so they needed something to complete the tag team match. But giving a loss here to Dar and Swann kind of weakens their story further in 205 Live. Whereas a pin on Swann for Dar to win doesn't hurt Sasha Banks any. That being said, I'm not going that route. I do see the way that they could and might want to go with giving Swann and Banks the win here. They gave Dar the pin over Swann on Raw this week, heading in on the go-home show. I feel that although they try to swerve us sometimes in some matches, I feel like that is going to follow the basic format of we make Swann look strong going into the pay-per-view, and we make Dar look strong going into the pay-per-view, and then we give Swann and Fox the win. Also, if their thought process is they're not sold on Bayley going forward, and they're not going to do the Bayley versus Sasha thing, if Bayley's not the merchandise machine they expect, if they're not liking the Bayley promos, like I personally am not liking, and they want to go a different route, then leaving the belt with Alexa Bliss, or eventually getting it on Nia Jax for a Sasha face run, because Sasha was much, much more productive as a champion than Bayley has been. Giving her a win here starts her climb back to that title. That's just a small side note thought. about that match. So I'm going to put like a little check mark on Rich Swann and Sasha Banks. However, I would not be surprised if they went the other route. Then we have a submission match for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. We have Neville, the champion, versus Austin Aries, the challenger. Now this is match number 3 in the series. Usually when you have a match progression like this, you have heel retains by nefarious means, heel retains by nefarious means again. I feel like the thought process is the face wins the third match. And as a huge Aries fan, I want him to win. As I have predicted all the way through, Aries will be the next champion. It's just a matter of progressing and dragging this storyline out a little longer. Aries wasn't going to win at WrestleMania. They needed to drag it out and give this match some depth. And I'm ready for that. I'm ready. I say it's time to give it to Aries. That being said, this is WWE, and lately, if you go back and watch their pay-per-views, whether it be, obviously Alexa's not going to take the title off of Bayley after she wins it, retains it at WrestleMania, but she does. Obviously, Jericho's not going to take the U.S. belt off of Kevin Owens because he's leaving for Fozzy, except he does. Obviously, Jinder's not going to beat Randy Orton for the world title, except he does. I feel like they're all about lately swerving us. No longer is it a matter of let's get a great, amazing surprise like Seth Rollins coming down and cashing in his Money in the Bank at WrestleMania because we don't see any other option. Either Brock wins or Roman Reigns wins, and boom, swerve. Now it's let's swerve every pay-per-view and let's do it on a much smaller scale by just having someone they don't think is going to win. So from that mindset, it made me start thinking about Neville. What have they set up on this match? Well, they set up a case where when Aries gets Neville in the last chancery, he can't get himself disqualified to retain the title because because there's no disqualification. It's a submission match. When Aries is dominating Neville, a thumb poke to an eye and a quick roll-up isn't going to get Neville the win like, at WrestleMania or whatever, which it wasn't a roll-up, but it was a thumb to the eye is what got him the win. That can't happen here because it's a submission match. And because they put, and I'm going to talk about this a little later in the Intercontinental title match too, they put all the eggs in the basket of Aries now finally has a chance to win. I feel like they're not going to give it to him. I feel like they've set it up where it's obvious that Aries has to win. What is Neville going to do to counteract everything putting in everything put in Aries' corner? And because of that, I'm going to say, and I hope I'm wrong, but they're going to let Neville retain the title. Now, theoretically, depending on how much you want to look into it, and a lot of times we don't see this. We don't see the how a match can play out based on its stipulations. What we see is a submission match, which means that someone has to tap out or quit. What that also means is that if TJ Perkins comes down and bashes Aries' head in with a chair for 10 minutes, and then heck, TJ Perkins could put him in a submission move. And if he taps out even to TJ Perkins, then Neville keeps the title. So the fact that it's a submission match plays in one way, but it also means that Neville could go, of course I'd fight in a submission match. TJ, come down and fight the match for me. I don't even have to fight. And then, Gallagher can get involved and all. I don't think that's the route they're going. But the fact that there's so much more to it than just being a submission match, it essentially becomes a no-rules match, but you have to submit to end the match. Just like a last man standing match is a no-rules match, but you have to be standing for a 10 count for the match to end. It changes the ending of the match, but it doesn't change the fact that there's no rules in that match now. So I'm going to go and say that Aries retains here only because it's too obvious that Aries wins. I'm sorry, Neville retains. It's too obvious that Aries wins. There's too many options for Neville to use to his advantage. One could also argue, well, then Aries could too. And although Aries is a face, he could be considered a tweener who's willing to cheat to win. I agree with that assessment. We won't get into the whole tweener debate here on this stream, but I have a podcast coming up on the tweener debate. But if that's the case, I'd love to see Aries hit him with a chair and then put him in the last chancery and have it work out to his favor. But I think that it's set up for Aries to win, so I'm putting the win on Neville here. The next match is the Hardy Boys versus Sheamus and Cesaro. I feel like this is the closest thing to a lock there is on the card. Matt Hardy, in fact, the Hardy Boys themselves haven't lost at all since showing up at WrestleMania. Actually, I believe they may have lost on Raw this week. But they were in a 6-man tag match. Did Dean Ambrose get pinned in that match? I don't even remember. That match was so... I don't remember. And it doesn't matter. But that they're so protected, per se. They've won the singles matches against each other. Matt Hardy won the match that let them pick the stipulation. And that is the determining factor. If you want the faces to come out looking strong in a match, then you let the heel win, you let the heel pick the stipulation, and then the champions overcome the heel stipulation to win the match. This match was put together because Jeff Hardy is going to swanton off the top of the cage. That is the only reason this match is in a cage. If the Hardy Boys wanted to win a match, and they were using their brains when they picked their stipulation, they would pick a ladder match. But they did not. They picked a cage match because WWE wants to see Jeff Hardy swanton off the top of the cage. That is why this match is in a cage. They can get the titles on Sheamus and Cesaro without pinning. They could escape the cage. A pin on Jeff Hardy after missing a swanton off the top of the cage does not weaken the Hardy Boys all that much. This is the closest thing to a lock. Sheamus and Cesaro walk out as the WWE Raw Heavyweight Champions here. This, again, WWE could swerve us because this is the most obvious lock. Randy versus Jinder was like, I mean, depending on who you listen to, there was a 80% chance Randy was winning. It was never going to be Jinder. So, theoretically, they could go any route they want. But I'm got to say that everything I've read, every prediction that I've watched, everyone has Sheamus and Cesaro winning this, and I can't see any reason not to give it to Sheamus and Cesaro at this point. So, Sheamus and Cesaro. The next match they have is the Women's Championship match, Alexa Bliss versus Bayley, kendo stick on a pole match. This is another situation where if they're happy with Bayley and they like Bayley, then having her overcome this match that she's just not fit for because she's not the kendo stick type. I mean, it's a bad narrative. It really is a bad narrative. She can't get extreme. Well, she either wants to keep her title or she doesn't. And as a WWE fan, she wants to keep her title. And as a WWE fan, she's seen loads of people that she's respected over the years and love get extreme when they had to get or keep a title. It's just a nature of the beast. And Bayley would get extreme at this point because she has to get her title back. Otherwise, why is she in the WWE? That's the narrative that they're setting up, and it doesn't make sense to me. It's a bad narrative. The problem is, I'm not sure that WWE is sold on Bayley. I said it earlier in the earlier matchup with Alicia Fox matchup. She's not the merchandise machine that she appears to be coming out of NXT. She does fine, but she doesn't. She's not going to sell John Cena level merchandise, and that's fine. But if she's not going to do that, then the title doesn't need to be latched onto her for long periods of time. She had her run. She had her WrestleMania moment. They gave it up to Bliss. Are they going to take it away from Bliss so quickly? I feel like they like Bliss. I feel like everyone is big on Bliss. Whether you're a fan that likes her because she's gorgeous, a fan that likes her because of the hard work she's put in to show that she can wrestle, a fan who likes her because she is arguably the best on the mic currently, if not ever, in the female division, or your WWE execs that love that her merchandise is outselling Bayley, you have to like Bliss. So if that's the case, are you going to give Bliss the SmackDown title back just to have her lose it at Naomi a month later, and then justify her loss by moving her over to Raw so she can win the belt to lose it a month later to Bayley? I'm not sure you're going to do that. Also, if you compare Bayley's title reign to Sasha Banks' title reign, as I said earlier in the Sasha Banks title reign was much more productive. She's better on the mic, she's better in the ring, and she actually was getting better crowd reactions, which was part of the reason why they gave it to Bayley. They expected better crowd reactions. She's just not working out on the main roster the same way they expected. So, keeping the belt on Bliss and setting her up in a battle with Sasha Banks makes more sense than giving the belt back to Bayley, having her have a lackluster run, which leads into a Sasha Banks heel battle between the two, from coming off of a lackluster run. I feel that Bayley is going to... Now, here's one of the things that I don't like about how they've... Just making sure that you understand that they have said the first person who gets this kendo stick gets to use it in the match. Well, that's great. What I wish they would have said is only the first person who gets to use it in the match. Anything else that gets used is a disqualification. And if the second person gets it, they get disqualified too. That would be great. That would be a stipulation. But when Bayley grabs it and jumps off the top rope with it and swings at Alexa with the kendo stick, or even hits her a couple times, which she will. She'll probably hit her a couple times with the kendo stick. And then she rolls out of the ring, and then Bayley starts to climb out of the ring with the kendo stick and gets tripped on the apron and then falls. And now Alexa Bliss gets to pick up the kendo stick. Bliss gets to use the kendo stick too, which is a fault in the match. It is a horrible stipulation because of that very situation. Bayley will get it first. Bayley will get her licks in. Bliss will end up with it. Bliss will beat her and finally be the one that hits her in the head with it or something like that, or hits her in the stomach, and then Sparkle Splash her, lay the stick across her, and then Sparkle splashes her on the stick. I don't know what they're going to do, but Bliss will retain while Bayley still gets hardcore. So they managed to go with the narrative that Bayley can't get hardcore, but she does. But Bliss is still the goddess of WWE. She still walks out with the championship, and they'll move on. Now, whether they'll move on to Nia saying, you retained your title, and you said that you would give me a championship match next, or Sasha coming and saying, I won my match, I'm the former champion, I should be next. They may jump right into Sasha for SummerSlam, or they may decide they're going to leave it on Alexa for a while. But either way, I really think Alexa keeps this the title here at Extreme Rules. The second to last match I have listed here is Dean Ambrose versus The Miz with Maurice. I'm going to go back to alluding to the Neville's-Austin Aries match here. Dean Ambrose facing The Miz is set up for The Miz to win. Dean Ambrose is in a match where if he gets disqualified, The Miz wins. Because of that, it's real easy to have the Drifter run down to the ring and clothesline The Miz for attacking him on Raw. Dean Ambrose is disqualified, the belt is on The Miz, and now Dean gets into a fight with Elias Sampson for costing him the title, and Dean rides off into an Elias Sampson fight. Miz is the champion, and he can go on to fight someone else. That is the perfect setup that they have laid out for you to see. Everyone can see that coming. The whole match will be a case of Maurice trying to get Dean Ambrose disqualified. that's what the match is going to be. Miz somehow trying to find a way to get Dean Ambrose disqualified. The problem is, in that setup, it becomes too obvious. It's a situation like with the earlier matchup where if I was in a match, you put me in a match with anyone, I could get them disqualified. It would be real easy to get them disqualified. Like I said, pay someone, find a best friend to come down, and all I have to do is run away from this person until my friend comes down and clotheslines me, and then they're disqualified. It's just too easy of a setup. So somehow they have to make this match happen without Dean Ambrose getting disqualified. And if that's the case, then, I mean, I guess they can make it into an entertaining match by having Dean Ambrose staying one step ahead the whole time. Elias Sampson comes down, slides in the ring, and gets clobbered by Dean Ambrose before he can. And then you have match, and then here's a segment. And this would be amazing. This would be amazing if they could pull this off for 10 to 15 minutes, where something happens where someone's going to get Dean disqualified, and Dean cuts it off and finds a way to avoid it, like I just said with Elias Sampson, and then wrestles a match for 3 or 4 minutes until Maurice finds a way to make it look like Dean gets disqualified. Like, for example, The Miz slides in, throws the belt to Dean Ambrose, and then hits the floor. And then just as the ref is about to turn around, Dean Ambrose throws the belt between the two and hits the floor too. So the ref turns around with the belt in the middle and both of the people laid out on the floor. It would be a very amusing match if the whole time all it was Dean counteracting everything that The Miz does to get him disqualified. And then in the final frame, he finally does get disqualified in some way. That would be the only way I could see them pulling this off with a Miz win. Otherwise, it still has to go somehow that way, but Dean ends up being successful and retains the belt. It is so hard to pick this match because the right answer is The Miz. They need to give the belt back to The Miz. They need to get it off Dean Ambrose. And the match itself is a horrible match type for the reasons I've laid out. So when I get to this point and I say it really could go either way, but I have to lead towards Dean because it's so dumb of a stipulation, I start to say, well, let's see who is the next challenger. Who can be a challenger for this belt going forward? Well, essentially anyone who's not going to win the 5-corner match could be. So let's say that someone wins the the Extreme Rules Fatal 5-Way match. Obviously, someone will win that. And coming out of that, you'll still have a battle or two. Finn Bray, if one of them don't win. Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe, if one of them don't win. And Roman Reigns. Well, let's just say that they're not going to move Roman Reigns down to the Intercontinental title. Braun will be back soon, and they'll continue Braun versus Roman. So one of the other four, or Roman Reigns wins, and he's not involved. One of the other four probably win the match. And whichever one doesn't win the match, if Seth wins, Samoa Joe fights for the title. If Samoa Joe wins, Seth fights for the title. If Finn wins, Bray fights for the title. If Bray wins, Finn fights for the title. If the next Intercontinental title challenger is the person whose opponent, because you know it's Finn, Bray, and Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe, whoever wins, their opponent is the one that's going to fight for the Intercontinental title next. That might tell us who comes out of this Intercontinental title match as the champion. So, before I put my little check mark, let's move on to the next match. The Fatal 5-Way Extreme Rules match. Now, normally I would go through every single competitor in the match, tell you how or why, and I'll still kind of do that, but I'm going to speed run it because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I just want to pick a winner. So here we go. Roman Reigns is a 0.0% chance. He's not going to win the match. Braun will be back any day now. His 6 months out is more like 6 to 8 weeks, and we're coming up on that. I expect him to show up. Heck, he could show up at the pay-per-view. I don't know if he's been cleared yet, but if not, he could show up on Raw the next night. Roman Reigns is not winning here. They do not want to do Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns yet. So that's not going to happen. Which leaves you to the 4 people that, like I said, are in individual bouts with each other. Now, you have Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe. Either of these guys can win. However, their bout with each other is kind of unfinished. And because of that, I feel like neither of them are going to win. I would love to see, if I was picking, it would be either Rollins or Bray Wyatt based on what I'll talk about next. But I don't think it's going to go that route. It's going to leave Rollins and Samoa Joe versus each other, meaning that the winner of the match will be either Finn Balor or Bray Wyatt. We're just going to move them to the side. I think that Seth Rollins is a nice sleeper. It's who I would have win if I was booking. But we'll go with that they're going to go either Finn Balor or Bray Wyatt here. Now, I've made this narrative in the stream. If you come and watch my live streams, and we've talked a little about it, a lot of this is going to depend on a couple factors. Factor number one, are you trying to make Brock Lesnar look like a face, or are you trying to make Brock Lesnar look like a heel? Because Brock Lesnar fought as a heel in WrestleMania. However, when he showed up on Raw after WrestleMania, he cut a face promo. The crowd loved him. Everything he said was face. Not him, but Paul Heyman. They're thanking Goldberg for the fights and how, it wasn't, we tore through Goldberg and we told you we'd do it. We're the beast and no one can beat us. It was thanking Goldberg for the series of matches. I don't remember exactly how he put it, but it came off very face. And then he disappears. And then Paul Heyman shows up and talks to Finn Balor. And instead of cutting a Finn Balor, we destroy you promo, what are you thinking, this is the beast, he cut a very face, you're the one person that we'd be worried about. So, it was a face promo, which tells me that they're leaning towards, at least through WrestleMania, at least during this title run, a face Brock Lesnar. People are going to cheer him, they want people to cheer him, and they're going that route, which of the two puts the one tick on the Bray Wyatt side over the Finn Balor side. The next step to look at is, how important is Great Balls of Fire? Now, you have SummerSlam coming up, you have Survivor Series coming up, you have Royal Rumble coming up, you have WrestleMania coming up. I expect that Brock fights in at least 3 or 4 of those. If he's a champion, he fights in at least 3 or 4 of those pay-per-views. And even if he's not the champion, he probably fights in at least 3 or 4 of those pay-per-views. He will be on WrestleMania. Let's say Roman Reigns. He will be on SummerSlam. He will be on Royal Rumble, and he will be on either SummerSlam or Survivor Series, probably SummerSlam. So if you're saying that let's give him Braun Strowman at SummerSlam, because that was the original Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view, and let's give him Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, he has another big battle that he has to have on one of the major pay-per-views. Is it more likely that he fights Bray Wyatt on one of those major pay-per-views, or is it more likely he fights Finn Balor on one of those major pay-per-views? To me, of all the people left, unless you're going to do some kind of weird triple threat and one of those, Royal Rumble triple threat, Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns or something, unless you're going to have a triple threat or something else, if you're going to have a one-on-one match, Finn Balor is that other big match. He never lost the Universal title. Paul Heyman started pumping him up. It makes more sense for Finn to get a major pay-per-view than Great Balls of Fire. That is another tick towards Bray Wyatt, in my opinion. Now, the third thing is, Bray Wyatt just came over to Raw, okay? Finn Balor, and these are kind of equal. They kind of combat with each other. Finn Balor never lost the Universal Championship. Everyone thinks Finn Balor is still Universal Champion, and Finn Balor versus Brock Lesnar is a great narrative for Balor to go back for his title. He's never lost. I see that. I do see that. However, for me, that narrative plays out better in a major pay-per-view than Great Balls of Fire. I'm going to keep going back to the winner of this fights at Great Balls of Fire. Now, let's go to the opposite narrative. A very similar narrative than Finn Balor's, okay? No, Bray Wyatt wasn't former Universal Champ. No, Bray Wyatt didn't didn't not lose the belt. But Bray Wyatt, in kayfabe, in storyline, was the world champ on SmackDown. Bray Wyatt lost his championship. Bray Wyatt never got his rematch for his championship. By the time it was time for his rematch, they quickly shifted him over to Raw and put him in a House of Horrors match that wasn't for the title. So, from that storyline situation, for those of you who said Finn Balor never got his rematch, you can justify Bray Wyatt's rematch as a title shot for the Universal title. Also, Bray Wyatt right now is at his highest point, okay? He was just the WWE champion. Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt a year ago would have been, that's a cool match. Bray Wyatt's neat, but Bray Wyatt will lose because Bray Wyatt always loses. Whereas right now, Bray Wyatt is a former world champion and he just lost the belt. He's at his highest potential. If you wait and do this match in January, where the next 6+ months, Bray Wyatt just loses and loses and loses, then it's not as big of a deal. But doing it now is a big deal. Finn Balor, on the other hand, is a big deal now. He's a big deal at WrestleMania. He's a big deal at Royal Rumble. He's a big deal at WrestleMania 2019. Finn Balor's going to be a big deal. They're never going to let him get to Bray Wyatt lows. So Bray Wyatt is a better matchup from that standpoint now than Finn Balor is, especially if it's just a placeholder match at Great Balls of Fire. Finn Balor, they don't want to lose. I'm telling you now, guys, Brock Lesnar is not losing the title at Great Balls of Fire. That is another tick for Bray Wyatt. And last but not least, Bray Wyatt, this is the behind-the-scenes stuff. For all of you don't do the rumor mills, Bray Wyatt was promised a championship run where he got it at Elimination Chamber to set up the Randy Orton match. He would lose it at WrestleMania, but then get it back on the road to SummerSlam. That whole situation, now time. He was promised a championship run, a second one, and that's why he was lose the belt to Randy Orton. He was shocked when he was moved over to Raw because he was promised that championship run. Now, do I think that equates to a championship run on Raw? Maybe eventually, but not anytime soon. But what it does equate to for me is, listen, Bray, sorry we had to move you over. We made a change at the last minute, but we're going to throw you right in the title picture here. You're going to get a match against Bray Wyatt. You're not going to, against Brock Lesnar. You're not going to win, but you're going to be in the main event. You get a main event payday. So I feel like for all the situations we have going on, there's a lot more ticks in the Bray Wyatt department than there is in the Finn Balor department. Are we trying to sell the WWE Network so hard in May for a May pay-per-view? Because, guys, they really put the pushes in April. They really put the pushes in January for the major pay-per-views. And there will be another one coming up in August for SummerSlam. But are they really trying to get the network subscribers to the point where they're going to give us Brock Lesnar versus Finn Balor at Great Balls of Fire? Maybe. It's what everyone else is predicting. Every single prediction show I saw, every single prediction thing I brought up, article I brought up, says Finn Balor's winning. I cannot believe that after Jinder Mahal, after Bray Wyatt winning the Elimination Chamber, after the shakeups that are happening, after the changes that are coming, I cannot believe that they're just going to say, wow, 150% of the people say Finn Balor's going to win this match. Finn Balor's going to win. I don't see it happening. My little check mark goes into Bray Wyatt. Now let's step back down to the Dean Ambrose Miz. Finn Balor versus Miz for the Intercontinental title, even if Finn Balor doesn't win the title, is the match I see that could happen with Bray Wyatt winning the match. So I'm going to give my little check mark to the Miz, even though I'm leaning Dean Ambrose in that match, because I have picked Bray Wyatt. Now, if everyone is right, if Finn Balor wins, then Bray Wyatt winning the Intercontinental Championship off of Dean Ambrose makes more sense in the grand scheme. If the overall thing, Bray Wyatt gets another title run as the Intercontinental title. Finn Balor gets the match and finally gets to go after his Universal title that he never lost. It's a better, cleaner, much cleaner storyline coming out of Extreme Rules. I get it. But I don't think that they look for clean. They look for, right now, they're looking for shock 'em. Shock 'em every pay-per-view. Make sure that some people are talking about the pay-per-view even weeks later. We're still talking about Jinder winning the title. Why? Because we didn't see it coming. Even though we did see it coming. Even though it was, we saw the possibility, we were still shocked when it happened. So their goal is to shock us. And having Bray Wyatt, who took the pin from Samoa Joe, and the other person that took the pin on Raw was Seth Rollins. I think that if Bray Wyatt doesn't win, I think that, and I said that during that match, I think Seth Rollins is a better candidate than Finn Balor. Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt are my two picks, not Finn Balor. They both took the pin on Raw to make them look weaker, and that usually equates to a win on the pay-per-view. But that's my predictions. That's what I think is going to happen. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. If you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. Also, like I said, drop down and click the twitch.tv/SpectrumDominus link and throw me a follow on Twitch. You can see all these videos filmed live, interact with the stream, interact with me personally. We do a lot of wrestling-themed games, box openings, card pack openings, everything wrestling on the stream all the time, all wrestling all the time. It's a lot of fun, and we'd love to see you there. My name is SpectrumDominus, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.